Five-ish fangirls, I love you, and I'm one of the five-ish. In fact, I'm the biggest one of the five-ish. I am the Sixth Doctor Colin Baker, and I wish you all well. Have fun.
The tangents this week continue all the way to episode 190 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast, and we're gonna play a little pretend this week, which should be fun. I'm very excited about this. Anyway, welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you join us. Let's start off like we do every week. We're on the virtual table and see who joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Bethlehem.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So, Chrissy will be joining us shortly once she passes off the tiny watching duties to her husband. And we might have another late arrival. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So, but that being said, I'm very excited about this week's show because we have, at the moment, 2 guests. And possibly another, so we'll see. This could be a very full house. No pun intended. Something, I don't know. This could be a very full show. This is a good number of people, and I think it's going to be quite fun. But we'll get to the actual topic here in a second. First, we need to introduce our guests and alphabetical order. So, Chris first.
Sounds good. My name is Chris Mao. I'm from Illinois. And I'm the owner of the Blue Box Cafe, which is a Doctor Who themed cafe in Elgin, Illinois.
Ooh.
Yay! Which I desperately need to come visit. Heard so much about it. I was like, I really need to go there. Thank you, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
For having me.
Yes, and then the gentleman that roped you in here to join us, Rob.
Yeah, hi. I'm Rob Southgate. I'm one of the co-owners of Southgate Media Group. I'm on roughly 1 million podcasts. One of them, though, is Chris and I do a bunch together, but actually we do live shows out of the Blue Box called, I know it's ironic, but it's called Live at the Blue Box. And it's awesome. So when we do our next podcast marathon, I expect to see some Five-ish fangirls there.
No pressure. No pressure.
Right?
Let's hop in the car. Well, for me, it wouldn't be that
far. We were just in Indy.
I know. Yeah. Yes, you and Southgate Media Group got name dropped several times last week when I was recapping Indy PopCon. So
I'd love to hear that. I hope it was good. I hope it was all good.
Talking about
was in the bad section?
Yeah.
Things to avoid?
I know. Talking about the podcast marathon and all that fun stuff and how entertaining that was, especially the live script read of Parks and Recreation. So
you like that, huh?
I like that quite a bit.
Well, it's not tagged properly because legal stuff.
Yes.
But it is on our Live at the Blue Box feed right now. I put every episode from that day. So there are, I think, 19 different episodes on Live at the Blue Box on that feed that have all been going on. Not 19 yet. I got 3 more to post tomorrow. But I did hide it. It's under the show Descripted. That's one of the things we do with our podcast marathons. We try to make sure that they are all like indie podcasts and they're real podcasts. Because when I go to these, I don't know if you guys have been to any like marathons or podcast festivals, they love to have just like, hey, we're going to do a podcast with a celebrity, and the celebrity is not a podcaster. I mean, it's great to have him on as a guest, but if the podcast wasn't a podcast to begin with, it's kind of pointless. There's 1 million to choose from. Let's get real shows. So Descripted is a real show that we created for Live at the Blue Box, and this time we did the hunting trip from Parks and Rec.
Which was hilarious.
Yeah, I thought so too.
and Molly does a very good Leslie Knope. So
we were going back listening to it, and she has that monologue where she has to roll through all these like completely inappropriate things. And,
yes.
You know, the listeners don't know Molly's 11, and she's just She's just whipping through them, and it is so funny. It's awesome.
And Molly's mother was out of her mind.
Oh yeah, she was just dying. You can hear it on the show. She's just laughing through the whole thing. It's great.
It was hilarious. So, but
when we played Descripted the first time, because the way that works is we take a script from like a TV show and we roll a die, and whatever number corresponds with the character, that's who you have to play. So the first time we played, Chris got Aunt B.
I was wonderful too, by the way.
You sounded just like her, Chris.
After 5,000 cigarettes that day. So
Right.
that's okay.
You were Aunt B. Arthur.
Oh.
What do you mean, Rob?
Yeah, it was great.
No, I really enjoyed the podcast marathon. It definitely was a good way to kick off the PopCon festivities, considering PopCon really does not start until late afternoon. So,
Right.
yeah,
None of that were we aware of either. So now we are.
yeah.
Yeah, I walked in. I said, Rob, you know that they don't start till 2, and he's like, what? But you know,
Yeah. There were 10 different things that I went what on that day. So that was one of them. I do want to plug a couple things since we were talking about Blue Box when we were talking about podcast marathons, and I was inviting you, ladies. September 29th is the 4th annual SMG podcast marathon at the Blue Box Cafe. Rachel, if you liked the one at Indie PopCon, you have no idea. It is the best thing we do all year. And then October 6th at the Otherworld Theater. This is an exclusive. We haven't made this public yet. I haven't put it anywhere. At the Otherworld Theater in Chicago, we are hosting WIP, Women in Podcasting, and it's going to be like a festival of women in podcasting. So maybe you want to do that one instead. I don't know, but you guys should certainly consider doing one of them. And Chris has something that same weekend, which I'm sure he's going to be talking about quite a bit tonight.
yes. Oh, so another podcaster on This Week in Geek with us named Lil Kanitza and I are going to be hosting a small con in Elgin called Geeks Con, where we are really focusing on bringing art and geeky things to people at an affordable price. And I'll talk about that when we get into the podcasting, but we're doing that October 6th and 7th in Elgin. In Elgin at a place called the Next Door Theater, which is right across the street from the Blue Box Cafe, and you can get more info later on.
Cool. Awesome. So, well, the reason that you gentlemen are with us is I'm always racking my brain for topics for the podcast. I mean, we have our go-tos anytime there's a new Star Wars movie or a Marvel movie, we'll talk about those. When our shows are on, we'll talk about those. We have a few standbys that we'll go to, if there's no movies or TV shows specific to talk about. But after the madness that was PopCon last weekend, if anybody, if any of you guys or any of our listeners are part of the PopCon community on Facebook, almost immediately as the show, the tape probably wasn't completely up off the floor Sunday, and people were on the Facebook group going, these are the people I want you, these are the guests that I would like you to get next year, because PopCon is very good about taking fan suggestions for guests, and not just like big name celebrities, but cosplayers, artists, YouTubers, that sort of thing. So, poor Carl and the rest of the crew have barely got a chance to catch their breath, and people are already like, let's start planning next year. And in my head, I'm like, okay, great. Yes, I'm looking forward to PopCon next year, as I do every year. But it got me thinking, what would my ultimate convention be if things like space, security, money, all those things that usually factor into planning a convention were not an issue? and you could just invite whoever you want. You could have whatever sort of panels you want, any sort of events you want, that sort of thing. What would my dream, ultimate pie in the sky convention be? And I thought, you know what? Be fun to plan in my head, but it'd be more fun to plan with friends. And so I put it out there to the ladies. They thought it was a great idea. I was like, this would be even more fun if we could get some friends, especially folks that have some experience going to comic and pop culture type conventions, so that they've got some frame of reference. See if anyone will want to join us. So I put it out there on Facebook, and I got a massive amount of response really quickly, which I was really surprised. I'm like, okay, well, it's like I figured maybe a couple people, and by late afternoon I had like a half a dozen people messaging me and responding to my thread. And finally I was like, okay, I think we got enough people. So it's like, I'll keep you in mind for next time. I need some more voices on the show. Rob, responded, and I gave him the ID, and he's like, great, let me see if Chris is available. I'm like, cool. So
and here we are.
Here we are. So that was late last week. So I think, I don't know about everybody else, but over the weekend I've just been kind of having that, the gears in my head churning in my brain, going, who would be good guests, what would be some fun events and panels and that sort of thing. I started looking at websites for well-known conventions to see what kind of things they've done, to kind of get some ideas and that sort of thing. So, and I think between right now the 5 of us, I think I know Holly said she's got a small Bible of ideas. So I've got all sorts of ideas, not necessarily guest related, but more like events and that sort of thing. So,
and see, mine are kind of more guest related with a couple events. So I think this will
kind of have like a mixture of both.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be fun. Like I said, pretty much anything goes as far as ideas. As far as like celebrity guests, my only stipulation was they do have to be alive. Just in case this actually did happen, it helps. Unless you want to pull it.
Can it be just barely alive, but alive?
Yeah. Unless you want to, pull like a Tupac type thing and do the hologram thing. Like I said, money is no object in our pretend convention here. But really, just you could do anything that you think would be appropriate for a Comic-Con / pop culture type convention. And like I said, money is no object. You don't have to worry. This isn't any specific place, so space is not an issue.
We don't have to worry about guest canceling for
exactly.
prior projects.
Exactly.
So this is literally just a dream con.
Exactly.
The entire thing.
It's
going to happen the way we want it to because it's the dream.
Exactly.
Yes.
The weather's going to be perfect. No guests are going to cancel. There's going to be no security issues.
Everybody's going to fit into the great big hall, no problems.
Exactly.
No drama.
Everybody gets front row seats, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So, that being said, because like I said, I think we got a lot of ideas between all of us, so we're going to jump straight into it. And I think we'll start with our guests first, and then I think we'll go in roundtable format. And if I had a coin, I'd flip a coin to see which one of you wants to go first. But I guess if you want to virtually duke it out, which one of you wants?
Rob always gets the nod to go first, so he may go first.
Okay.
Oh, I like to duke it out, but you know what? I'll give you some ideas that I have up front. First of all, when I look at something like this, I don't think of it as a one-time deal. I think of it like, how do you make this a sustainable thing? And the way you do that is you don't blow the entire thing on every single guest at once. Because if you're going to do that, you just go, I want everyone that's ever been in any genre show all the way back till they're dead.
Yeah.
I want them all. But I think a smarter way is to be thematic about it. I think the things that really make people crazy and make them really want to go to stuff is like when they say, we have everybody from the Avengers here this weekend. So what I would like to propose is taking one movie franchise like that, a big thing like Star Wars or Star Trek, and you get everybody that you can from the cast there. Then you also do the same kind of thing with TV. And it would be awesome to get like people that rarely do these, like David and Jillian from the X-Files. You get the key people and you get them there so that they do panels, they do signings. There's no budget. Let's get the entire group. But we can't say, we'll get all of Supernatural and all of X-Files and all of Star Trek and all of... No, let's pick 2 TV shows and 1 huge movie franchise. Boom. You got it all then.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on it.
I like it.
Then we can fight it out which one we'd go for.
Yes. I like it.
And you know what? I had the same kind of idea, and trust me, Rob and I did not talk about this at all beforehand. He just said, hey, I have this idea. I think that if you can limit it to themes, and then also, and I don't know if you could do a speed pass or do something like that, where you're not spending your entire day in line trying to get an autograph from somebody, where you can either, say, hey, I'm going to be, you show up at 1 o'clock, you'll be out by 1:30. So you can do the other things and see other people,
mm-hmm.
as opposed to I spent 5 hours in line one day to see John Barrowman, because that was the only time he was doing autographs, to the public realm.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? At this convention, because he was late. So I literally spent an entire Sunday waiting to get one autograph while I could have been doing other things.
Yeah.
So that kind of drives me nuts, because you can't go to the panels, wait in line, get an autograph, get a picture, do all that stuff right then and there. Because there's just too much to see. So that if I was running an ideal convention, that would be what I would want to do, because people need time to see stuff and buy stuff and see other people. And if you say, hey, you get to see one, that's not worth the money that you're going to pay as a guest. So that's my just thought on that.
I almost never go to panels because of that. And Chris, I rarely will go up and see the celebrities. I usually try to lobby for, hey, I'll go talk to their publicist and I'll get an interview later, But doing stuff there on site, I'm usually like, no, I'm not waiting in a 2-hour line to, meet Timothy Zahn, which I did with you, Chris.
Yes.
That's your fault. That's on you.
But that was worth it. But you're right. No, it's hard to do. It's and it's and especially in the conventions these days, it's way too much money to not have a good time, and that's the way I look at it. So
right, if you're spending all that money and standing in line for 5 hours, that's not really the best time ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when I went to Cincinnati Comic Expo a couple of years ago, and we just went for the one day, and we did the photo op with Stan Lee, which was running way behind schedule because there were just so many people, and then John Barrowman was the other person I wanted to meet, and I stood in line for John, and then I had to leave the line to go stand in line for my photo op with Stan Lee. And then by the time it was done, I had to go get back in line for John and waited in line for ages for John Barrowman. So yeah, I missed pretty much the entire convention because I spent the entire day standing in line. So yeah, like Disney's fast pass system is almost what it sounds like you're proposing if you've ever been to Disney World or Disneyland, where Disney World, you actually book those. You can book those ahead of time before you even get to the parks. You're you log into your account. You're like, okay, I'm going to be on this park in this day. It verifies that you have a ticket, valid admission, and you look and see what's available. And it's like, oh, Soarin' is available, at
Right.
from 11
because-
to noon. It's like you can go get in line anytime between 11 and noon, and you're guaranteed a short wait. So.
Right. Well, that's relative short, but yes.
Yeah.
So it is. I think, if you could do that, now obviously that would make it a little bit rougher on some people, but, it would make it a lot better, I think, to make it more orderly because, when you have those things, you have vendors, you have other guests, you have all these people, and if everybody's waiting to see John Barrowman, who should, because he's fantastic and he's great to meet and he's great to see and he's funny as all get out, you need to have time to go do that stuff. I mean, I think I had to go to the bathroom so bad at John Barrowman, I about passed out, but I wasn't going to lose my place in line because I had waited like 3 hours. I'm like, I'm not going to wait another 2 hours to do that. So.
Yeah.
I have an idea. I don't know how it would work, but like, what if like there's like a time slot, but you get like a number in that time slot, and you can do what you want into that number's card, and then go get a signature.
Sure, I think that'd be awesome.
Very similar to the Fast Pass thing. Like they could buzz you,
Yeah.
Right. Or text you because everybody has a smartphone and say, "Hey, you're up at this point in time. This is what number we're at." And it's hard. I mean, those guests, the celebrities, they meet hundreds, if not thousands, of people over a 3 or 4 day con. So you got to give them time to do it. But I think they might appreciate that instead of having this huge line where they look at it and go, "Wow, there's 300 people sitting there waiting for me." I mean, after a while, their egos can't be that great. Being like, I have to have 300 people waiting. Just let's get these people through and let's do our jobs and let's do that stuff. So
I like it.
I like it, yeah.
Yep. So, who wants to go next? Brittany or Holly?
But if you want to go on, then I can.
Holly has to decide which page in our Bible she wants to go with.
Well, and then what kind of a grouping I want to do.
I was thinking like kind of like an event type thing. I've been having like 90s stuck in my head, like get like those old 90s game shows and have like a room for each, and you can participate in anyone that you wanted to do.
Yes. I have something like that written down. Like have like, hey, like come to room blah 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 and participate in a game of Double Dare or
yes. Oh, Legend of Hidden Temple.
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. I would.
Yeah, that sounds like a good
that.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, forget the escape rooms. I want to play Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Right?
That's the ultimate escape room. Get that shrine of the Silver Monkey. Yes, I love
the hidden
that.
objects from Nickelodeon. I can't remember. Was the Finders Keepers?
Yeah. Yeah, take those old 90s like Nickelodeon game shows and put them in. Oh my goodness, I would love that.
Fun.
I love it. Oh.
Well, kind of one of my ideas for a convention for maybe like a day or a couple days and then maybe have another one, kind of like cult 90s and 2000s TV shows that kind of have a quasi-loyal fan base, but they're not real major, but have them all show up. I'm talking Highlander, the TV series. Get the main cast, Adrian Paul. I mean, get Roger Daltrey because he played Hugh Fitzcairn. Peter Wingfield, I know he's doing doctoring now, but he could get off of work. I mean, get that cast. Get Leverage. Get the librarians. The Sentinel, which was on good old UPN back in the day, Forever Night. Get those Witchblade.
Yeah, and try to get the whole cast like we were talking about. Like
get those,
so that it's like if you're a Witchblade fan, you're going to travel the whole world to get to that particular con.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, that would be kind of my dream thing. And then, maybe the next day have all the other big names, but have, everybody kind of there.
That'd be cool. You could do a whole WB one, or
that'd be awesome.
Get Cena and all that whole, because they ran with that for a long time. They were the only ones doing that kind of fantasy stuff. I mean, imagine having all of those shows.
Yes.
For that would be the theme for the day. So I know Kevin Sorbo's available, so he'll be around.
Oh yeah, Xena, Hercules, those and then get the bigger name tentpole fandoms for another grouping for our con.
Yeah.
Well, but do those fandoms cross over a lot with, like, the Doctor, the Doctor Who, Sherlock, Supernatural? They all kind of fall in the same category. Would that be cannibalizing too much, or would that be? I'm just trying to think about that. Or is that good that you could get all of them together?
I think it would be good because there's a lot of crossover. It's like, oh, if you like this show, you like that show, or even certain actors have crossovers. Like, well, did you know they were in an episode of this show? And that's how I got into some of these other fandoms, because I followed a certain actor. I'm like, oh, they were in this show. Okay, let me follow that. Fell in love with it, and then boom. So I think mixing and matching is, it's good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's for every uber large fandom out there that's got a billion fans, there's other, I don't want to say obscure, but fandoms that aren't necessarily, the show or whatever is not in production anymore, but the fan base is still fairly strong, so people would, travel to come to an event where they're like, oh, this person, the show.
And you can pick and choose and not, I still contend that it costs way too much to go to these things, but maybe you could pick and choose. Let's say if you did it over like an 8-week period where you had all these different ones, you could go in for 2 weekends, or if it's close by, maybe 3 weekends where you could go in and do that and not spend $50 zillion to go do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because even go to Indie PopCon, I don't know what they charge. Was it like $80 for the weekend or $90?
Something
Is that
like
what it was? I don't even know.
I don't know.
But I mean, that's a lot of money to do hit or miss if you just want to see Will Wheaton, for example, which might be worth it or not. But now, and I thought the stars were pretty good. But at Wizard World especially, there's you blow off a shotgun and you're going to hit 20 people you might want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't see them. So I love that idea of kind of focusing in and saying, hey, we're going to do, like that. We talked about Xena, that whole kind of like run of shows that were all similar. And then you can see those people and spend the weekend with them and then not feel like, oh, I can't see Xena because I have to go see, wait in line to see, one of the guys from Star Trek that never come out. So. And then maybe leave the big ones like, Star Wars Celebration is going to be in Chicago this year. And that's 5 days, and I don't think that's enough time to see everybody and everything that you want to. So, not that I can go for 5 days, but, one day is going to be out of control. Yeah. And what do you do? So.
True. Very true. Yeah. Let's see. What do I want to do first? One kind of dovetailing on Brittany's idea of the like 90s, kids game shows from like Nickelodeon, where you can, kind of relive the dream, is I would love to, one of my favorite shows, and I would love for them to do this, but they haven't on the actual show, but we can, it's our convention, so we can do whatever we want, is do a con version of Lip Sync Battle.
Ooh, yes.
But finally give us regular folk the opportunity to lip sync battle against a celebrity. So take some of these celebrity guests that are at our convention, but then give the regular congoers an opportunity. So, because on lip sync battle, it's celebrity versus celebrity. In this case, celebrity congoer. And you still give them all the same things. Give them the opportunity to do costumes, sets, rehearsal time, that sort of thing. So logistically, it would be a lot of work, but this is our convention and we've got, all the manpower and money that we want. So, blah. But I would love, the chance to do like a lip sync battle against somebody. You know, like lip sync battle, me versus Robert Downey Jr. I am totally down for that. So, you know, bring in Chrissy Teigen, bring in LL Cool J, all the backup dancers and everything, and just lip sync battle it out. I think that would be so entertaining and hilarious, because so many of the celebrities, some of them, they really take it seriously and have a lot of fun with it. But I've always loved the idea of them bringing in a regular person to be the other contestant. So at our convention, that would be a thing. Lip sync battle, celebrity versus regular congoer. Namely, me.
That would be so much fun, but I would be so nervous at the same time. I have to do this in front of all these people plus go against a celebrity. Oh my!
Yeah, but it would be so much fun.
It would.
Just we'll get you a little shot of a little something first to help with the nerves, and it'll all be good. A
shot of liquid courage.
Yeah, a little shot of liquid courage, and it's all good. So that's my first idea.
It's a good one.
We'll take that one step further. What about just anything interactive that you would want to do? Wouldn't you want to use Star Trek, for example, be on the bridge?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that would be awesome, where you could just go sit on the bridge and say, make it so or whatever, and get that kind of videotaped or whatever that is in that part. Because I think that would be the unbelievable fan experience. Go on the TARDIS set. I mean, I would go insane. No, I've seen
wallpaper.
Yeah, I've seen mock-ups. I've seen all that stuff. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Whatever it is that you wanted to do, if it was Dina, if it was Sherlock, imagine sitting in his living room with him sitting there, Cumberbatch sitting there with you talking, and him, insulting
I would never leave. And there's Chrissy! Yay!
Hello!
Hello, Chrissy! Hey. Well, we all just did our first idea, so you jumped in just at the right time. So before we all go around again, you can add your first idea. So.
Well, my first idea, when I was sitting down to think of what I would do or what my favorite kind of convention, I ended up with a ton of authors that I would want to get together in a great big room. And I don't know, you want me just to go down the list of who I'd like?
If that's what you want to do, we've thrown out all sorts of things already. So
okay, yeah. I don't know, just because I feel like I've met a lot of people at cons that I've wanted to meet, and I'm like, I'm good. But authors are kind of my, books are kind of my shtick, as it were. So one author that I've actually wanted Salt Lake Comic-Con to get for a really long time, and I don't know if he just doesn't do cons, is Michael J. Sullivan, who's the author of the Rhaenyra Chronicles and Revelations. I figure he just probably hasn't been asked, so because he's so personable with his fans anyway. So I'm just like, come on, guys, ask him, because he'd be awesome. Some other ones. Orson Scott Card, I think, would be a fantastic guest to have at a convention. I mean, Ender's Game, who has never read, if you're a fan of sci-fi, you at least know what Ender's Game is. Mm-hmm. So that he'd be a good one. And then I have a lot of kind of indie authors that I'm acquainted with through my husband, because he does a lot of indie writing, and so. Anytime we get those people together is always a good time. Larry Correa is a local author who's I'm sort of acquainted with. I wouldn't really call him a close friend, but he knows me by name. So Sarah Hoyt, Brad Torgerson, Julie Frost, Jay Barnson, John Olson, Maria Fontaine, Kia Heavy. A lot of indie authors, and then there's some urban fantasy authors that I would really love to. Well, I met Jim Butcher at FanX once. I'd love to have him back again. David Weber would be a fun one to have. Patricia Briggs, Lois McMaster Bujold, and a couple of YA authors, Marissa Meyer, Shelby Bach, Andrew Klavan, Melissa McShane. She's another local one that I've read a lot of, and she's fun. So yeah, I just would be like, let's have AuthorCon.
I'd throw in some of the authors from the old Star Wars expanded universe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's
And then,
I don't know.
what
as
about
I-
Diana Gabaldon for the
Yes, that would.
Outlander fame?
Yes, Terry Brooks would be another fun one. As I was compiling this list, I was like, this sounds a lot like it's this writing conference that they do every year down in Provo, Utah. It's called Life, the Universe, and Everything, or LTUE, as the fans in the know call it. It's just kind of a small. It's kind of like Gallifrey 1 as far as how big it is, but it's all writers and people who are so I'm just like, let's do LTUE, but more for readers rather than just writers getting together and working on their craft, which is like LTUE is awesome. It's like, let's do that, something like that for people who love to read sci-fi, fantasy, and that sort of thing. And then on that note, also getting some really good audiobook readers. I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks, and I've started to pick out some of my favorite voices, readers that I like to listen to. Like Tim Gerard Reynolds is a good one. He does a lot of fantasy. Oliver Wyman's a great one. Michael Kramer and Kate Redding are kind of a duo. Justine Eyre, she does more romance, but I think she's done a few non-romance things. And then this was a fun one. I never realized he did audiobooks until I started listening to the Grim Noir Chronicles.
One of the X-Files audiobooks, and he does a good job.
Yeah, I mean, until I started listening to the Grim Noir, I was like, it's Balky, except it's not Balky. But he is fantastic when it comes to doing voices. So I'm like, I wouldn't mind meeting him and having a track of audiobook. I guess that would kind of fall under voice acting,
also
but
a good one too for audio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be really. So I don't know. I've never seen an audiobook reader track at a convention. I've seen a lot of voice acting, but I was like, audiobook is kind of its own sort of thing, and where I'm starting to kind of pick out my favorites and the ones I really like. It's like, I'd like to meet some of these people. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so there's my literary idea for a convention.
I like it. And I did not think of people who do audiobooks, so because that does tend to, sometimes it is celebrities. So I know at PopCon there were people having their copies of Ready Player One signed by Will Wheaton.
Oh, there you go.
So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's mentioned in the book too, but I mean, he did the audiobook, so. So smart, cool. I like it. I had one author written down on my guest list, so I was trying to think of like people who don't necessarily do conventions, and I was like, well, authors are kind of a when you think of Artist Alley, you tend to think of people who draw or create things, and you will get the occasional author, somebody. It tends to be more independent authors, although you do get your Timothy Zahns every now and then. But I know Gen Con does a big writer symposium, but it's more like what you were saying, Chrissy, the LTU, where it's more writers honing their craft. It's not writers necessarily talking to fans who have read their stuff and want to discuss their work with fans. So
that's it's kind of become one of my favorite things. Like when I go to Salt Lake FanX, and I always end up just at the big author booth. It's Wordfire Press is Kevin J. Anderson's independent. I guess it's his independent publishing company, and he sponsors a booth at a lot of conventions. Salt Lake is one that he does a lot, and like I said, a lot of these some of these indie authors and some that publish with Wordfire, them and another local one that's Skylar Publishing, and I just always end up hanging out at their booths because I love talking to the authors, and it kind of was like, what if we did that, but the whole convention is all authors. I mean, I'd love to, see, Star Trek cast or cast of other shows, but I just kind of feel like I just kind of gravitate to where the books are, and of course, that makes my wallet cry. But I mean, I'm looking at, my husband and I have 5 bookshelves, but the top row and then half a second row are all books that we've had signed at conventions and author events. And we love it, and that's kind of our big thing is we love books, we love sci-fi novels, and we have so many favorites, and it's not necessarily that. I mean, there are some on here I would love to meet in person that I haven't met, but then there's some I'm just like, I've met this person before, and I would love to meet them again and have just a big party in this big kind of this big setting with this mix of people. So. Yeah. So big names, smaller names, just in my experience, when authors get together, it's always a good time, and we just have fun.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, that's everybody round 1. So we're back around for everybody's second choice or whatever you want to call it. So, Rob, I think you're up again.
Are we still doing like celebrities?
It's whatever.
Or do we just whatever at this point?
Whatever. It's a free for all. So we're keeping it fast and loose.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. If I was building a con from the ground up, and I we've got the celebrity section. That's not actually my favorite, but yeah, I think that would work. To me, Artist Alley is why you want to have the vendor area because they pay a lot. Mm-hmm. But as a con goer, I spend my entire time in Artist Alley and with small press. I know there's one on the East Coast that is supposedly giant, and it is entirely Artist Alley. I've talked to some of the different artists that go to that, and they're like, oh my God, it's the best. You were talking about doing like a book thing. They'll have like a couple of rows of and that's all they're doing there. Mm-hmm. And the next thing is all comic book writers or artists, and then you might have, I don't know, even podcasters or whatever, like new media people, without so much of the celebrity in the vendor area. And that's what I would like to see, is a much bigger presence of Artist Alley, really getting people so that they're having that engagement between the artist and the fan.
Yeah, because I mean, there's as nice it is for the, I guess the whatever the proper term, the gate turns for some conventions. If you bring in celebrity that's big, it'll bring in the bodies, but then people aren't necessarily spending money. I know that was an issue. That was year 2 of PopCon, the year that they started to really bring in YouTubers, and they brought in Jacksepticeye and some others. And the Artist Alley, after the fact, I heard from folks that it hurt their bottom line, because people were just in line, because there were just so many people in line to meet these YouTubers that nobody was wandering the con floor. So people weren't spending money in Artist Alley. People weren't necessarily spending money at the concession stands. Even the other celebrities who normally would probably have a decent line. People like John Delancey and some other folks. Nobody. I could just walk up and have like a 15-minute conversation because nobody was in line for these folks. Because it was all about these big name YouTubers. So.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
And I think, and I remember that when you were talking about that, Rachel, is like they didn't realize how big these YouTubers were, and at the time I'd never heard of them, and now I've kind of watched them and like, okay, yeah, I understand why these guys are big. So when you're organizing, make sure that you have these. Putting the YouTubers in a good place, like maybe not an Artist Alley where it clogs it all up, and then the people who are looking for the artists aren't like, well, there's huge lines out there. I don't want to stand in line. I mean, I mean, when we go to conventions, nobody says, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to go to a convention and stand in line. It's going to be awesome."
Yeah.
Which is kind of part of the thing. But as you plan, I guess, and our guests here who've had a little more experience with this, you go kind of planning where you're going to put people throughout the day, throughout the convention. That's definitely a consideration to make. And also at the same time, I just had this thought as you were talking, Rachel, is that, like you go and you say, okay, I'm going to go get David Tennant's autograph. And then you go and you get it, and, then, you stand in line for so many hours, and then you've done it, and you're like, well, what am I going to do next? And it's, go, look at the vendors, and you hope that the vendors are able to kind of capitalize on that as well. But if your people are too tired from standing in line all day, and then they go do something else and don't spend money, that's kind of a problem too.
Right, too tired and too broke, because getting a picture and an autograph from David Tennant is a minimum $250 and probably more. And if it was $50 a piece, maybe you have another $50 to spend on some comic books or a book from an author or a cool picture. But if you're spending $250, you're going, man, I got to spend $15 to eat lunch. I'm out.
Yeah. And you're just like, well, yeah, I've still got to pay rent when I get home.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So. I mean, even though people save up, I go to Chicago TARDIS every year. It's a Doctor Who convention in Chicago. Mm-hmm. It's after Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And, I live here, so I don't stay there, but there's people who that's their event for the year. And they go and they have the money, and it's not really expensive, but you could obviously spend as much as you want. And the pictures are reasonable, but, there's still people, and I know I've talked to them, they're like, this is what I saved my money for. But guess what? You go to Indianapolis, like you being here in Chicago, you can go to Minneapolis, Madison, Columbus, St. Louis, Chicago, Indianapolis, all these other places, Detroit. You can go to a con every weekend. Who can afford that? And these artists are at these conventions, and there's a lot of people who go to a lot of them, and they don't have the money. And that's I think that's one of the problems also that I would like to see is less cons, but more quality and more quality of what you're getting, as opposed to God bless Wizard World for having 10 events, but you can't make them all. And they want vendors to go to all of them, but vendors can't make money at all of them. So what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like sometimes I don't mean to bring down the crowd here, but sometimes I wonder if we're getting a little oversaturated with conventions, and we're saturating the market, I guess is the term that they use. It's like, it'd be awesome to go to a convention every other weekend if I could afford it, because I love, and I'm like, let's make it something that's special and not something that becomes commonplace. Whereas, oh yay, another convention, oh well, I guess I can show up if I don't have anything else to do, because in my mind I'm like, this it ought to be something that's special, that you save your money for, that you look forward to, once out of the year, or however you do it. And for vendors, you have to pick and choose what's profitable for you, because if it's not worth your while, you're not gonna have vendors show up.
And Rob and I, we do a lot of cons around here, and I guess, and I don't know how you guys do it, but we work the media angle so we can get in and afford to go, because I couldn't go to C2E2, Wizard World, Anime Midwest, all the ones here in Chicago, unless I got press passes to at least half of them.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? I see, even at Indy, probably 12 or 13 of the vendors I knew on a first-name basis. So, I love their work, but I'm not going to sit there and buy a $20 thing from them every time. I might buy a button or something and give them a little bit of money, but I can't do that. But like the first few times I saw them, I absolutely did, because they were great. And that's a hard part. And there's so much of the same stuff. How many people can, I hate to say it, rip off Black Panther or Captain America and put it up there, but there's some really cool people out there that do some really, really great work that I do save up for maybe once a year. And I'll buy something, a nice print that they did or something like that. So it makes it hard.
Yeah, I know for sure. Like, when we, like, I was talking about authors, and I go there and they're like trying new authors that I haven't met yet, or I read their stuff and they're trying to sell me on their stuff, and I'm just like, ugh, books are expensive, but you're standing right here in front of me, and I know you work hard, because I mean, my husband's an indie author, and he writes, and I'm like, I really want people to buy his stuff, but you gotta pick and choose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always kind of go in with a plan. Like I can buy 3 or 4 books because I'll read them. I'll read one of them a week easily, and if I like them, then I'll buy more. I mean, I've ran into some really good authors and good stories that way, and sometimes they're done, but that's just the way it goes. And then you put them in a one of those mini libraries that's around, and hopefully somebody else can love it, because there's obviously somebody that will. You just have to find the right connection. So. Oh yeah.
Everybody has their audience, and whether it's you or not, that just kind of depends.
Well, yeah, but books are 15. I mean, it's 15 to 20 per book. That's a lot.
I mean, it really is.
3 of those is a picture of somebody you might want. So
that's true. I mean, I do like the authors. If you buy their book, they will sign it for you. So you think of it, the book, in a sense.
Well, sure. And it is nice to build those relationships. I've met some really, really, really super nice people that have come out to the Blue Box and just kind of hung out sometimes with their, or wanted to do a book signing, and that's neat just by saying, hey. I mean, we have a lot of really good friends, Rob and I, that all the time they just stop by if they're in the area. If they're out doing a smaller convention or something around. Library conventions are big for a lot of these different crowd, but I don't know if they make any money, but a lot of them say they do, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, we've been to a couple of those, and they can be definitely worth your time, both in terms of how good of a time you have, and making a little bit of money.
Cool. Awesome. We might have another person. Hold that thought!
Okay.
So.
Holding. Intermission.
Maybe.
Making their way from the vortex?
Yep, she's trying to, hopefully, so...
Is the TARDIS gonna land? Are they gonna make it? Is Sexy gonna stick the landing?
That's my favorite episode, by the way, of New Who.
I know now you made me want to go watch it after I'm done. Not that I'm
going to go watch a Doctor Who episode.
What am I gonna do?
We had it on today. We had that just like that little run of it, and because we show episodes consistently or constantly at the store, and I like it comes on, and I'm worthless. My wife knows I'm not going to watch, and I've probably seen it 30 times or 40 times in 4 years that we've been open. So.
Oh, here's some late breaking news I just saw. Salt Lake Fan X has Brent Spiner coming.
Hey.
They just barely announced it.
Well, we skipped news this week, so.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Did we get our visitor from the Vortex?
I'm trying to. He should be on my contacts. This is the way Skype works, folks. For anybody that does not use Skype, this is the way things go. Isn't this thrilling? Aren't we excited? This is everybody's chance to, kind of catch their breath, check your notes, figure out where you want to go next with your next suggestion. So, well, while I'm trying to figure that out, whoever's next on our list,
well,
feel free to jump in with your next.
Was it my turn or someone else want to go?
We had an order, so Rob went.
Oh, okay.
Chris, did you want to include what you just said as your?
I just said my thing, so
okay.
I'm good.
Okay. So Holly or Brittany. I think Brittany.
I guess it was
technically
me.
Yep.
I don't know how this would work, and it's not really like a suggestion. It's like, oh, what am I trying to say? Like, maybe have like the normal con on the weekends, but have like an exact same con. But, like, people like me who work the weekends who can never go to conventions, like, have it during the week somehow.
Hey, that's something to consider. You know, the people that work weekends. So.
Or even have a convention preview on a Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. I mean, maybe you wouldn't get the big celebrities. Maybe you would. Who knows? But just to at least get the flavor of it and feel like you participated in some way, or have a little, cosplay contest, or if there's some celebrities who are willing to come out for during the weekday. Yeah, that actually is a good idea, Brittany.
Hello, what's up, ladies?
He got out of the vortex. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're well, the women still outnumber the men, but just barely. So,
hello, gents as well.
3-4. So, and for our listeners that have been listening long enough, y'all know Shaun. So we'll properly introduce everybody once we're done here, since we're already in the middle of everything. So.
My apologies for my tardiness.
That is okay.
We're used to it from now for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much every time Shaun has been on, he's come in late. So it's just par for the course.
He's here. The other two Vortex guys are not. So you're.
I have a secret for you. Anytime the Vortex podcast is late, it's probably my fault.
So. All right. Well, we're in the middle of our second go around the table here. Brittany just gave her suggestion. So, Holly, do you want to give your next idea? Since you're the one with the Bible.
Yeah. My next idea would be kind of like an 80s sci-fi kind of a movie get together with the surviving cast members, and maybe even watching movies like Princess Bride, Willow, Flight of the Navigator, those, Tron, all those type.
Like having like a live commentary, maybe?
Well, like a live commentary, a panel, interactive, you name it.
That would be cool. So they've done. I think there's some conventions that they've done like live commentary with.
We did.
Movie.
The year I went to Galley, they had the director of Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, the Doctor Who episode, and they did a live commentary. Like they played the episode, and he was up there talking about everything, and he's like, "Oh, I want to pause it and tell you about this," because the format of the panel couldn't really do that, but it was kind of cool. So yeah, I'd totally be up for that.
Hey, at our convention,
Galley also did it with
the
cast of Doctor Who the movie, minus Eric Roberts, who didn't show up.
He was busy dressing for the occasion.
Apparently.
Yeah.
But yes, a very cool idea, and one that I've also experienced and would be totally down for again.
And at our convention, we could pause. We could make that a rule.
Yes.
Instead of just blocking out the runtime of the movie, you block out like double that, so that there is time for like pausing in stories, and then you pick the movie back up again. Because it's our convention, so we're allowed to do that.
we have time turners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or TARDISes, or however we want to do this.
Yeah.
If we're going to break that rule, then I'm going to say that I want to be able to bring some dead people back with me.
No bringing back dead people. That was my one rule. Although I did say if you wanted to pull a Tupac and do the hologram thing, more power to you. So.
It wouldn't be the same.
I know, but as
I
far
know.
as our convention goes, anything goes except breaking the laws of science.
Darn it, no time travel.
No time travel, no reanimation of corpses or that sort of So.
Oh, I'm glad you put that stipulation on us, because I was like, okay, living or dead. Oh wait, we're not. Okay, that makes it a little easier.
Yeah, they do have to be alive.
Just out of curiosity, I'm going to derail the entire conversation. Who is everybody's top choice for dead person, if you could? If you could have one dead person that you could magically transport in time and bring to the con, who would it be?
Walt Disney.
J.R.R. Tolkien.
Philip K. Dick.
Ooh.
That's a good one.
C.S. Lewis.
Also a good one. Mostly authors. Interesting.
I was going to say Tolkien, too, so.
Same wavelength. Wait, well, Shaun, before you came in, my big thing was, let's do a big author convention, and readers come meet all your favorite authors.
So
well,
there you go.
my favorite authors. I don't know if there's anyone else's, but this is my convention. Yes.
You could tie that in though. It's like, come meet your favorite authors, even the dead ones.
Now featuring Charles Dickens. He's coming in for this one.
Ooh, we could do that.
With or without the gift.
Sure.
Yeah.
I bet Shakespeare put on an interesting panel.
That's true. That is very
Yes.
true.
If you could understand him, that would be my issue.
Yeah.
That's funny. That is very funny. Oh, this is a rabbit hole. Okay. Steering back to the actual conversation.
Sorry, I'm done.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay, so my next con idea is I love live entertainment. As fun as panels are and movie screenings and that sort of thing, I love live music. I go to concerts, at least a couple a year on average-ish. It depends. Sometimes I'll see the same artist more than once in the same year. And the nighttime, evening entertainment is sometimes, I don't want to say lacking, but it's usually not my cup of tea. It tends to be things like dance parties, which is not really my thing. Sometimes karaoke, which there's not enough alcohol in the world to get me to do karaoke. Maybe there is. We'll see. Or 18 and up, that sort of thing. There are some conventions that are starting to do concerts. Again, the second year of PopCon, they did do a concert-ish type thing with some of the YouTubers that also happen to be musicians. But again, not really my cup of tea. So I would love the idea of, once all the panels and everything's done, for the folks that don't necessarily want to go back to their hotel room, but they don't necessarily want to, maybe if they still have kids with them, so the 18 and older programming isn't necessarily appropriate, but they still want something for the family to do, would be a concert with an artist who would be entertaining enough to, hold a decent concert, but it's still somewhat family friendly. And the two that I came up with is Rhett and Link. They're a couple of YouTubers, but they're hilarious. They've got their own internet talk show, but they are musicians, and they have done some smaller concerts in the past. But then my really pie in the sky concert would be Weird Al.
Mm-hmm. That would be really cool.
That would be awesome.
Like the one year FanX had Weird Al. He just did a panel. I don't think he actually did any kind of concert, which was like, maybe he did and I just didn't go to it, but I never saw it on the schedule. So I was like,
probably not. He probably just did a panel. So
yeah.
But I think Weird Al, he's done a few conventions, but to have Weird Al, one as a guest and then two as a actual performing artist, as part of the events would just be, it'd be really cool. Because he's an amazing performer. It's good for all ages. you know, and it would just be a fun, I think, kind of change of pace to, you know, your traditional convention experiences. So, family-friendly, all-ages concert with Weird Al Yankovic at our convention. Done. And now Shaun's here. Shaun.
Yes, ma'am.
Your turn.
Well, building off of that idea, funny enough, it's actually something that I've already suggested to Planet Comic-Con, where Bartle Hall is situated in Kansas City, downtown, literally right across the street from the South Dock of Bartle Hall is the Kaufman Entertainment Center of the Arts. And it's this big opera house looking thing. Kind of looks like the Sydney Opera House in a way. And it's a musical venue where they put on the Kansas City Philharmonic and things of that nature. And I think you would be very smart to tie into that. Geeks have a tendency to, we gravitate toward movie soundtracks. And for a lot of us, the soundtracks is kind of a gateway drug into classical music anyway. And so when you have 70,000 people show up, it's like, well, let's put on a concert. And if we're talking pie in the sky, okay, John Williams.
Bingo.
Yep.
Yes.
An evening with John Williams at the symphony, you know.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
you just, I'd be
Well,
all
you know, think of how many, you know, symphony musicians would love to perform with someone like John Williams. Even.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, even if they're not of the geek persuasion, they'd still be like, dude, John Williams, yes, I will perform.
You can rotate it out. Obviously, there's enough. You know, you get Danny Elfman one year, and you can bring in, you know, Hans Zimmer or Michael Giacchino, and just you know, do all the hits from their stuff. I think it would be, even if it was one of those things that was an added-on cost, I'd pay for it in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Any excuse to make them more interactive. I know that, as you pointed out, Rachel, some of the not just a panel, but doing something, you know, being entertained, and having done a couple things like Kevin Smith, when he came down, they did an evening with Kevin Smith, which was absolutely the highlight of the whole con. Was sitting and listening to him for 4 hours and 4.5 hours until they turned the lights in the building off. But there used to be a promoter, and he was based out of Kansas City by the name of Dave Scott. And Dave was kind of the forerunner for Star Trek conventions before creation kind of locked him up. He was very big in trying to promote a con, but doing it in a slightly different fashion. He was the first one that brought Shatner to the area. And this was back in the day, I'm old enough to remember, it's like Shatner doesn't do cons. And then they announced they were bringing in Shatner. And it was like, oh my God, Shatner's going to be here. And he just did the panel, and that was it. And as Dave Scott would talk to more people from Star Trek, from all of the various incarnations, kind of the one overriding theme that he got from everybody is that they want to entertain. They've done cons, they've done panels, and they get asked the same questions all the time. What was it like when you did this? What's your favorite episode? It's the same rote answer, and you get to the point where you're trying to find creative ways to answer those same questions, so you're not disappointing your fan, but at the same time, you're tired of doing this. And then you sit at a table and sign autographs, and that's it, and you go home. So Dave came up with the idea of basically doing he called it Dinner with the Stars, and you paid a little bit extra, and you sat down, and whatever venue you were at, they put on a fairly decent spread, and the stars would come out and rotate around the tables and just talk with people. And it wasn't structured. It was just they would wander the crowd and talk to people. And then after dinner, they would all come out individually and entertain. And I'm going to blank on his name now. He played Stephen Furr from Babylon 5. He didn't have a set routine, so he just came out for 30 minutes and told dirty jokes. James Doohan, before he passed, he came out and told war stories. I had no idea that the man was a Canadian artilleryman who they decided it would be appropriate to drop him onto Normandy Beach. So they paradropped him, even though he's an artillery guy.
Yeah.
Just fascinating stories to listen to. And then, of course, the highlight of all of this was the year that they had both John Delancey and Leonard Nimoy as guests. And they performed Alien Voices, Spock Meets Q.
Oh, boy.
Live, approved by Paramount. They performed it live. And so I got to see Leonard Nimoy as Spock.
Nice.
30 feet from my table. You want to talk about a geek out experience.
No kidding.
And then it was after that and the success that they had with it that he was able to go back to Paramount and go, we'd like to license this and put it out on a CD. And they said, okay. But so anything
It's
of that
very
nature,
worth the listen.
if you haven't heard it, by the way, it's totally great. But anything of some access to them that maybe you don't get through the normal panel autograph photo session.
Yeah. Well, and,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
well, it kind of reminded me of what my thought was, because there are actually some YouTubers that I would like to meet, but at the same time, I'm like, well, when I like their YouTube material precisely because it's it's on YouTube. They polish it and they do one in particular I'm thinking of is a YouTuber goes by the name of Oxhorn, who does all Fallout material, and he goes into the lore, and he plays the game and gets all the footage and basically tells the story of each of these little quests and these places. Because if you're familiar with the Fallout games, they're massive, and there's just so much storytelling there, and that's part of why I've kind of gravitated towards it. And I'm like, I would love to meet this guy, but at the same time, I'm like, well, all I'm doing is meeting him, saying I love your work, and getting a handshake and an autograph, and while that's cool, I'm just like, but I would really, I don't know how you do this. Maybe you watch him play a Fallout quest during an hour or something, and have him narrate it or something like that. Because it's like I don't want to just sit there and ask you questions and get that starstruck look on my face like ha. But actually enjoy what this person does, and have some immediate feedback, audience participation, applause, what have you. So yeah, that kind of thing where it's not just the panel come line up and ask your awkward geek questions of this famous person that you've only ever seen through a little screen or the big screen, which whatever you have. So I don't know, like with so kind of that same thing, a stand-up show or a commentary or Twisted Tunes. I don't know if you've ever seen. Rachel, I think, has.
Yeah.
Where they have voice actors come out and perform a script of a well-known movie, and it's all in different voices. That kind of thing is just hilarious. So yeah, actually have them come out and perform and entertain you rather than just sit there and be like, "Hi, I'm a meat puppet here for you to come stare at."
Those are the best panels by far.
Oh yeah.
We talked about seeing John Barrowman. John Barrowman's panel is worth paying to go to whatever convention you go to. It's that good. Especially guys with depth or anybody, any actor or entertainer with some depth that just didn't do movie and isn't famous for being cute and going, doing whatever they're doing or handsome. Like I saw Sylvester McCoy. He grabbed a mic from the guy and said, go ahead and doing that stuff. That was insanely good. It was just crazy fun. Where, when you have the typical questions and answers, and some of those people are very talented and have things like that to share, but they're not entertainers like that. Where, Sylvester McCoy was a comedian. John Barrowman's a comedian, singer, actor. He's multi-talented.
Yeah.
Those are awesome, and I would love to see more of those. Because those old-timers, they had to work. They didn't make huge money off of the shows. Those guys in Star Trek made nothing. They didn't make anything in conventions until maybe 20 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And now it's big money, so obviously those guys don't mind. You talk to them and they don't mind doing it. It's hard. It's got to be hard to do, but they'll take the money. And I've always found, and Rob and I shared this before with each other, is when you go and talk to these people about things other than them being stars, they're going to open up to you. Because if you say, "Hey man, do you collect comics or anything?" If they collect comics or toys, they'll talk to you for 10 minutes about that, as opposed to saying, "I loved you on this episode of Doctor Who," because they'll be like, "Oh, thanks," next. But if you say, hey, I heard that you like to race cars, and they'll be like, yeah, I love to do it. So, I think the thing you have to remember about those especially is that they're people too.
Yeah.
And they just happen to have millions of people that like what they do as a job, as opposed to what, or maybe like hopefully somebody does, likes what you do. So it's not, it's a different kind of atmosphere, I think, and that's the way I always approach it when I meet those guys. It's like they're just people that probably want to do what you do, as opposed to sometimes.
Yeah, I remember hearing stories. I didn't get to see this firsthand because I didn't make it to that convention. But at the last FanX, they had Will Friedle there, and he loves to paint D&D minis, and no one ever really knew that. And somebody, or I guess he talked about it on Twitter, and somebody brought that up, and he just totally geeked out about what kind of minis he's painting, what he likes to. What kind of paints he uses, the coolest one he's painted, this at this time, and he was just totally, just people just were like, I never knew he liked to do that, and it was so fun to watch him talk about that, and he's an actor, and people know him as Corey's older brother on Boy Meets World, or the Ron Stoppable in Kim Possible, but yeah, it was just, it's like you find out those fun things about the celebrities that you admire, and you're like you said, they're people too. They have their hobbies and things they like to do as well.
And is there any greater fan experience than having that little one-on-one and getting the autograph, shaking their hand, and then mentioning, oh, I heard that you were into this, and seeing them light up because, oh yeah, let me tell you about this, and they go. That to me is that, I always thank people for coming. It's like, hey, because we're a flyover state. I understand that. We're not exactly we're the center of the attractions, but we're not the center of attention. And, so it was a commitment for you to take time off and take the money and come sit here when you're not going to be doing anything afterwards. You're going to go back to your hotel room and see what's on cable, which is not much. So thank you for coming. And certain of them respond to that, and they seem almost shocked, like, well, yeah, you're welcome. I was like, no, really, thank you for coming. But Doug Jones, if you ever have the opportunity, I've seen Doug at 3 different conventions here now, and he remembers me, which is strange because I don't think I'm particularly memorable. And I haven't done anything weird. I've not done anything weird to warrant it, just saying. But he is the absolute nicest, kindest, open individual you could ever hope to encounter. And we talked just a little bit about, obviously the makeup and the effects and this, that. And the last time we saw him was before Shape of Water came out. It had opened, but it hadn't opened wide yet, so we hadn't had a chance to see it. And we talked a little bit about Guillermo del Toro and his relationship with him. And then he just, I don't even remember now what it was, but we hit on something, and he ran for another half hour and just talked to us. And, gave Mel another hug. She collects hugs from Doug Jones. So, yeah, that to me is the interaction that I look for, is that, yeah, that's cool.
Tom and I have, we met him at a little seminar here in the town I live in a university where he did a thing with some actors, and I feel uncomfortable sometimes after looking at the picture. And it was I couldn't agree more. He was literally one of the nicest, famous people I've ever met. Just approachable and nice and genuine, and wanted to talk to you and not just pull you off. So.
Trash bag full of 20s.
Well, I don't even think he got paid for the thing we went to. It was in support of this small movie that he went to. It wasn't a convention. It was like a, Rob, what was it? It was like
it was actually a short film festival, and he was in one of the films. But he came because he supported this film festival. They had him out one time before, and he just said, hey, I want to come out. And he did a little Q&A. They gave him an honorary doctorate there.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and what was cool with that experience, I had interviewed him for our show, Enough Said, And nope, actually I interviewed him for a different show, but we talked about Enough Said because he played the Silver Surfer. And when we were standing there, when we approached him, he knew who I was immediately. He said, I know that voice, and it was awesome. We ended up talking to him forever until the promoter was like dragging him out of there, and he's like, I don't want to go. They started to turn to dust. And did I spoil something? So yeah.
If people are mad about being spoiled, it's been a couple months, so they have their own. They have themselves to blame.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
All right.
We had a similar run-in with Michael Rooker. He was here for a film festival for something that he had shot in Lenexa, and he came down. And again, this was before Guardians, so he wasn't Mary Poppins, y'all, but he was still the nicest man.
Yeah, he's pretty amazing when you see him.
Plus, he's pretty nuts. So he's he's a character, and he plays it. He runs with it, and it's awesome. So he is the guy he is, and that's good.
I love Rooker. I've never met him, but I can just tell I love him.
Same.
Okay. So I think everybody's had a chance to go at least once. So let's go around one more time and see where we're at. So, I mean, I could keep going probably for hours and hours, but...
So you are taking notes and putting together the ultimate fan experience, right?
Well,
that's the point of this.
Absolutely. And, it's being recorded for posterity, so when someone takes our idea and runs with it, we'll be like, we thought of it first.
Yeah. It's like, I want a slight commission for all of this.
Front of the line for everything. Please and thank you.
Well, I think that's the big issue. I mean, just kind of, the positives of the con experience are there's these great things that you get exposed to. You obviously get to meet people that you don't get to see all the time. But, if there's 200 people that want to meet that celebrity, someone's going to be first and someone's going to be 200th. And that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
And, I think if you can ease that pain a little bit, like we talked about the speed pass thing, we talked about, being in panels where those actors go out into the crowd and work it a little bit, when you actually get a little bit more of a feel than watching somebody ask somebody questions. I think that's what makes that experience much better for the person or for the guest when you get some kind of value out of it as opposed to just somebody signing a piece of paper or a picture that you took with them and spending that 10 seconds. And I think that's, whatever you do in the convention, that's to me the memories, like meeting Doug Jones or meeting other authors or having Timothy Zahn sign a book for you and actually talk to you about it and tell him that you appreciate what he did and all this stuff. He's like, that those are much more important than the I think that the glitz and glamour of seeing of course I love seeing all the Star Trek guys, but I met I've seen guys in the bathroom and said hi to them, and that's like even more important to me than actually getting their autograph because you get to see them kind of in a natural thing, as awkward as hell, but it was kind of cool. So.
Maybe on the elevator or the stairs or something.
Yeah. Sure. Well, like we talked about, they are people too, and so they're having good days, bad days. I mean, I met Paul McGann at Chicago TARDIS, and it was cold and rainy. He goes, if I wanted this bleeping weather, I would have stayed in England. And he goes, I'm kidding, of course. He goes, the food's better here, but I am in Chicago. But it was kind of funny because it was pouring rain. It looked like it was like England. So I remember those much more than the other stuff. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh. All right, so like I said, we'll go around one more time and we'll see where everybody's at with their lists. So, Rob.
Okay, well, I got one more thing here, and my time is getting short, unfortunately, so I don't know if I'll make it to the very end.
Okay.
But I got one more thing, and this is something that is actually kind of a tenet with my company too, with Southgate Media Group. I think that even though things are better, we are still underserving the diversity element of it. One of the tenets we have in our business is we've always tried to strive to have 50% female. And the reason I bring this up is even podcasting or Comic-Cons still kind of are a lot of 40-year-old white dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that putting together a good con, try to change that. You want to bring in guests to change that. You want to make it so that it is an accepting, warm environment. One example I have that my wife and I were talking about today, back, oh my God, I don't know when this was. It was before Wizard World. They had the Chicago Comic-Con. And at the 20th Chicago Comic-Con, anyone who wants to do that math, it was like, I don't know, 92 or something. My wife and I ended up as guests of honor at this thing because we had a zine out. And we were in Artist Alley. They gave us a table. It was really cool. And, like, we met all these people, and they asked me to host a couple of panels. Completely ignored my wife. And one of the panels, I was going to be interviewing a couple of different people. Let me see if I can pull up a name here, because this was kind of interesting. They did not want my wife. When I said, okay, well, Martha and I'll do this, they were like, oh, no, this is you. We don't have room on the panel. And they were really keeping it a boys' club. And that really bothered me. And that bothered my wife, obviously. And ironically, the woman, one of the people on the panel was a woman who had written a book called Women in Comics. And her whole thing was talking about that, but they were still kind of like, yeah, don't talk about that a lot. That's not, we're here to celebrate our geekdom or whatever. It was very strange. And I think that still holds over somewhat. Yes, you go to these and the panels have a pretty good mix, but I do see a lot of 40-year-old white dudes in there. I would really like to focus on changing that, because when I look around my world, it doesn't look like that. And I think a lot of people's worlds don't look like that. And I think it would be better served if we could find a way to make this more of a microcosm of our reality. Understand?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I got off my soapbox. But that was something that, when Chris and I have talked about starting a con, and, he's got one going, that is something that we have actually talked about, because that's something that I think is really important. I think you have to really kind of pick and choose what you're putting out there, what panels you're putting on, what celebrities, because you want to not only get that blue ocean of, this diverse culture that you can pull in that isn't being served or is underserved, but making a statement saying, look, we're going to try to have 50% of our guests be women, and they're not all, like, no offense, but Tara Reid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think you were talking about all these authors. There are a lot of amazing female authors. Why not make 50% of the authors they're female? Why not bring in, African American and Hispanic and whatever? Just really try to, stir that pot, because people want to meet these people. I met a guy at a con, Ben Torres, who was one of the designers for all those 90s Star Wars toys. And he's sitting there, and no one's really talking to him. And I'm like, I went up and started talking to him, didn't know what he did. All of a sudden, it was like this, flower blossom. He had all these great stories and all this. And he's like, that's what I want. That's what I want.
Well, and with the authors thing is, especially if you focus on indie, not with the traditional published houses, a lot of them are women. I mean, the people that I've connected with in like writing groups and that my husband knows, I mean, there are so many women who are just like, we're, forget the traditional publishing model.
Yeah, we don't want to have to answer to anybody. We're going to make our own way.
We're not going to answer the gatekeepers. We're going to, Amazon lets you publish, and these people, they go to conventions, they buy tables, and and I know Wordfire has made it a, they look out for the best authors that are telling the best stories, and and that comes from everybody. And so I think once you start looking for who are people who are actually doing stuff, who are creating art, whether it's an artist, an author, a YouTuber, or anything like that. I think the diversity is, if you really want diversity, it's gonna follow, because everybody creates stuff. And if you're actually looking, get the big name people to get, the butts in the chairs, as it were. But once you go to conventions and you see what's out there, and because I have been exposed to so many different new creators and authors and artists and things just by going to conventions and not just being like, you know, just not just focusing on, oh, my favorite celebrity, I get to see them, and then I get to meet new people from all different walks of life who are creating some amazing things, and they've become my favorites some more, and I want to meet them. So it's just like, you know, you find where you're going to find it, and that's the beauty of living in the age we do is you know, the internet has its problems. I'm not going to dispute that at all, but it also allows people, you know, who might not in years past might not have been able to break through those gatekeepers. And the funny thing is, those gatekeepers are there, and they are mad. They are really mad that their monopoly is being broken. You know, there's some really great stuff being created by all kinds of people, men, women, black, white, you know, from all over the world even. So, you know, look for it. You'll find it.
Yeah, and I think if you go at the con, if you're booking it with that in mind, I think you're better serving your audience.
Right.
It's just as bad too with the unintentional gatekeeper. We have a con that started up here, and I it did well its first and so far only year. It was called EmpowerCon, and it was all about empowering women. And they brought in Gigi Edgley and the Bionic Woman. I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
Lindsay Wagner.
Lindsay Wagner, thank you. And just, you know, it was like it was all kind of focused on that. And they had asked Traveling the Vortex to come down, and they wanted us to do a panel on women in Doctor Who. And we said no. I mean, it's like we very much appreciate the invite, guys, and we would love to do this panel, but unless you can pair us up with some women to be on the panel, having three middle-aged white guys talk about women in Doctor Who seems like the height of hypocrisy.
Exactly. And that is exactly it.
You're coming at this with the best intentions. I totally get where you're going, and we just happen to be the local podcast, so it made sense that they would come to us. But at the same time, it was like, let's go out and find some people. I run into the same problem with Flicks with Friends. I've wanted to do a show on the Bechdel test and how many films fail miserably.
Yeah.
Big movies that just can't help but throw in, oh, here's that one scene where our two females wind up talking about a guy. But I'm not going to sit on my couch and talk about that unless I have a woman on my couch that can chime in with some reasonably intelligent commentary on it, because me coming at it, it doesn't matter that I'm coming at it. I want to hear from the people who it's genuinely supposed to represent and affect. And so, in a way, it's the unintentional gatekeeping that's almost as bad as the fanboy gatekeeping that's like, no, you can't be a part of this because you're not what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So.
Amen.
Great point. I love it.
Skype us in, I'll tell you about it. I am really annoyed by
for the
that,
record,
that
we'll
whole
have
thing.
an invitation to appear on any of the Flicks with Friends shows. So.
Well, and that's why this podcast exists. Is, you know, it's like geek fandom. We're women. We want to talk about what we like. So.
And I'm like, I want to talk about things that I like, whether or not the person creating it is female or, you know, whatever group you that I identify with or whatever. I'm happy. I'm just happy to be here, and I'm enjoying it and having fun and all the drama and everything. I have no time for that.
Save the drama.
But I get what you're saying, and if you know, a hole in my schedule finally pops up, I would love to come on. I'd have to Skype in on Flicks with Friends with you, Shaun, but that'd be fun.
Absolutely.
You know where to find us.
Scheduling is always a hassle.
I think I've hit my limit here. I actually really have to go.
Okay.
Can I just give my social media real quick?
Yes. Go.
Sure.
Plug away.
Cool. So you can find all our shows. We have about 100 different podcasts at our website, which is southgatemediagroup.com. You can find Chris and I. We're on a show called Disturbed, which is about being geek. And I do a show with my wife and daughter called Ever After that just won an award at Indie PopCon for Best Family Podcast. And that's all about Once Upon a Time. Yeah, thanks. It's a lot of fun. And she runs it. My daughter, that is her show. She's
Nice.
the host. She also does a Doctor Who one called Cuckoo for Who, so you ever want to talk Doctor Who, there you go. So yeah, we just have a lot of things going on. We have our microcons where we do have artists come out to Blue Box and interact, and we don't charge them anything. It's awesome. And then we have our podcast marathons. We just have a lot of stuff. So if you want to find out more, go to the website, which is never updated. Follow us on Facebook, which is updated, or follow either the company on Twitter at SMG Pods, or follow me. I do most of the stuff through me, which is at our Southgate. And come out to Blue Box. You get to Elgin, come out to Blue Box and see us do this live, and enjoy the ice cream. They have ice cream now. Enjoy the coffee, enjoy the food, and they have ice cream now. Did I mention that? And guys,
hey, Rob, we have ice cream.
Yeah. Oh, really?
You guys are making me want iced cream.
It's so good. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I know we tried to do this once before and it didn't work. Let's do it again in the future.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on. You guys are awesome.
It was great meeting everybody. I'm leaving. I don't know about Chris. We're not actually in the same room, even though it seems like we are. So, good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Have a good
Thanks,
one.
Rob.
Good night.
A nice segue. Chris, I believe it's your turn. So.
Yeah, no, I think, I love I'd like to play off of what Rob did. I think the diversity is a huge issue, and we need to address it and get, and get it to a point where it is even a topic of conversation. We have a long way to go on that. And I think that's, like Rob and Shaun, you talk about how, you're asked to do panels and talk about subject matter that the people who it's about should be talking about it, and where we can get everybody at the table and do all that stuff. I think that's important. But, like to get back to like the con, I just think, I think we talked about touching it, is just getting everybody where they can have a good time and enjoy it. And, the hard part is how do you can't please everybody, but how do you get to that point where everybody gets something out of what it is and everybody feels the value? And I think that's great while we, that we talk about this subject and doing what we're doing, because all of you guys have different ideas, or, some similar, but a lot of different ideas than what I had. And I'm like, man, that's really cool. Like the author thing, that's awesome. I mean, I would love to sit down and be able to talk with some of those people, or, like you talked about being a Gallifrey one. I know TARDIS is similar, but I'd love to go to that and see that interaction and have that thing is having that many people enjoying the same thing that you do, even if it's a little different, but being out there and doing it. And I love that idea of kind of specializing where, hey, where do you get, a couple thousand Supernatural fans, or, Sherlock fans, or Doctor Who fans, or Star Trek fans, or Star Wars fans, or, 80s, 80s TV shows fans. And I think that's awesome and empowering, and, there's something special about that. And I think that's really cool.
Here.
Let's see. Brittany.
Gonna do a change of pace. I had an idea, like when I was in high school, I was part of the robotics club. So I think it'd be fun to have like an area where people could build like the favorite robot from sci-fi and have them battle each other. Have the best boss.
Yes.
Nice. Hey, you know what? You have D&D tournaments and Pokemon tournaments. You should have, robot fighting tournaments.
They've done something like that at PopCon the last couple of years, but it's just been like one of the local high schools, I think, or whatever, their robotics club, but they weren't necessarily recognizable robots. So it was just kind of random, whatever they built. But to be able to build like, R2-D2, but he's got a bandsaw on the front.
Yes.
Destroy.
Which is a
That's
great
like a
idea.
horror movie version of Star Wars.
Yeah.
R2-D2 is a serial killer? That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
I like that.
Hey, there are some fan theories that say he was, the most villainous. I mean, at least there's a swearing thing, but yeah, I can't remember what it is now that I'm trying to think of it. and trying to be smooth about it.
Or that he is actually the hero of the whole thing. That he is.
That too.
That's what the story is entirely about. So.
Up until Force Awakens, he was the narrator. So.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I kind of got two ideas. One could be we could have a family-friendly and then an after dark with the guests, but do like a whose line is it anyway?
Ooh.
And then throw in some, audience members as well that can get up on stage and improv with them. And then another idea is, people come in and they're meeting their friends for the first time, but like have like a meeting area.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
To meet, kind of like a green room for the, people meeting each other for the first time, And then,
those people that, you met your friends online, and then it's like you're getting to meet them in person for the first time.
Yeah.
Right.
Which can be awkward if you got like a set space where you can go and maybe not in the middle of a crowded hallway where everybody's seeing how awkward you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of like, okay, well, where should we? Well, here's this great big room for the, for the first time that you're going to meet, but, have it kind of cordoned off, and then, hey.
Yeah.
Stay spot.
Yeah.
There you go, and you can kind of hang out for a while and chat.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's smart. I like it.
I like that idea.
It's weird because we had at Blue Box, we had this girl that came to Elgin for a wedding with her family, and she was a YouTuber that did 21 Pilots covers. I don't have her name off the top of my head because I don't have my phone. And she had like 5 local fans meet her, and it was the coolest thing because they like totally fangirled over her, but then they just sat there and chatted, and like they were 12-year-old girls, and it was really cool. And all their parents were sitting around there, and they were all excited as hell. But it was awkward at first, like you said, but then after a while, they just got into the. I think that would be awesome if you could do that, and especially if any of you guys have played MMORPGs where you spend a lot of time with these people and you never meet them. All you do is talk to them, or it used to be just type to them. I used to be in the big World of Warcraft player, and I met some of the guys that we played with finally, and it was really weird, but it was also really cool because you did spend 5 or 6 hours a day with these people, which was more than sometimes you spent with your family. It was cool. So if you could do that kind of thing, or reconnect with people that go to the same convention that you do over years, and have a place to do that as opposed to having to go off site, I think that's really kind of a cool aspect of it, and that would be really neat.
Mm-hmm. What do I want to pick? I've got kind of 2, and they're kind of vastly different. I would love, and this is something that is already done at San Diego Comic-Con, I believe. Her Universe does a fashion show, like a geeky fashion show. It's Ashley Eckstein, voice of Ahsoka Tano, is founder of Her Universe, which does a lot of geeky clothing for women. And they do a big fashion show at San Diego every year. And usually the top 2 or 3 winners eventually get their designs turned into actual clothing that eventually goes into the stores at like Hot Topic and stuff. But as much as I love cosplay and masquerades and that sort of thing, I would love the idea of like a geeky fashion show. So it's not necessarily cosplay per se, and it's not necessarily a masquerade where people are doing like routines and that sort of thing, but just a chance for folks who know their way around a sewing machine, probably, which would not be me, but but people that want to have a flair for designing clothing, but with a geeky twist to it. I think that would be really cool. And then if you get somebody to MC it who's really good, someone like John Barrowman, he would make a great MC for a geeky fashion show. Yes, he would. I think that would be really awesome. And then my other idea was, with conventions, that one of the biggest things with these types of conventions is food. You go to a convention center, it's limp pizza and overpriced nachos and dry pretzels, and everything's, just carbs and costs way too much money and usually doesn't taste very good, that sort of thing. So I would love to up the food court, you still have your food courts, but to up the quality, I guess, and options, and just make it better, but do it with, like, bring in, like, some celebrity chefs. Bring in, like, Emerald Lagasse and Alton Brown.
Or some of the famous food trucks.
Exactly.
Instead of you guys being outside, why don't you come inside, set up in here, and have a great big, meeting place. Go out of the venue.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would definitely. I'm all about the food truck idea, especially because I know the convention center in Salt Lake, the Salt Palace. They've had there's a way, like, if you can bring in the Batmobile or the DeLorean in through the loading dock or something, you can definitely bring in a food truck and put it, like, along.
Or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, I know conventions are all like, oh, we have to, with the convention center, they have to serve the food that's at their concession stand because that's how they make their money. But, Dream Convention, it's like, let's bring in, some, like, locally, there's a Korean barbecue place that has a food truck that I'm like, that would be a lot of fun to have. This Korean barbecue restaurant is near where my husband works, and they have, like, really good Korean food. They also do really good burgers and stuff like that. And they have the food truck, and I'm like, bring that in, or there's a taco food truck that I know of, and get some local flavor to it. I mean, you were talking about how the celebrity guests, they come in. Utah's not much more of a flyover state than Kansas or Missouri, or Indiana, and so it's like, let's let the celebrity guests, these guest stars come in, get a taste of some local, food at least, even if they don't go out and go anywhere quote unquote cool after the convention's over, they just go back to their hotel room, let them have a little taste of the local food and culture and that kind of thing, and kind of prop up your local small businesses. I mean, we do that with the vendors. Why not with the food too?
Absolutely.
Well, and I was thinking too, maybe have a little special area too for, like, celebrities' charities too.
Yes.
And have a give back. Here's the causes that we support. Here's the celebrity support. We're all here. Let's also to have a good time, but let's also try to give back too. Pay it forward.
Another thing that'd be neat with food wise is, I have this unofficial Doctor Who cookbook, which they make a food based off each episode of New Who. So, like, we can have, like, a fandom, like, make food that's, like, based off of fandom or a famous food related to, I don't know.
Well, there's a YouTuber now, I remember her channel, I can't remember her name, but it's called Nerdy Nummies, and she makes, like, foods that are based off of, geek properties. And now I can't remember her name, but I remember one episode she did for Fallout, she made Nuka-Cola, and it's basically, a cola mix. It was just dyed blue. So have someone like that come and maybe even do some kind of bake-off.
Oh, there we go.
Like, at the fashion show idea, let's do, take that one step further and do food. I don't know how you sell it. Cakewalk, yes.
Cakewalk.
Sci-fi fandom chopped. Mystery baskets. Here you go.
Yeah. Iron Chef, but with with fandom-related dishes. They all have to be instead of it being based around a specific ingredient, do it around a specific fandom.
Yes.
Or theme. So it's like all your dishes have to be space themed.
Mm-hmm. And how creative can you get with it?
Exactly. I like it. Oh, yeah, because thankfully, Indianapolis, I know where to go to get food easily and quickly without having to resort to the food courts in the actual convention center. But still, it's kind of a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I see a lot of people who are coming in from out of state saying like, well, where's a good place to eat? Because we want to come to the con, but we don't want to just eat con food if we're gonna be somewhere new. It's like, I mean, when I travel somewhere, it's like, well, what's a good local restaurant that I want to hear? Let's bring some of those in.
Yep.
And if you don't have transportation to actually go off, way off site. Because I see people when they ask, well, I'm coming to the convention from Colorado or Nevada or Wyoming or Arizona, California, wherever, and they're like, well, what's a good place to get something to eat? And there's people just suggesting all kinds of great places, but they're kind of far away from the convention area and the hotels. Which, I mean, I guess you could walk to them, but it'd still be kind of far.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have a car or don't want to take public transport, it's like, well, bring some of those guys in.
Yep. Absolutely. So Chrissy.
Yes.
Your turn.
My turn. Let me get back to my list here.
The list.
I had my list of actors that I wanted. Mostly Doctor Who actors. Speaking of, and I guess this goes into the whole, live commentary thing, is get Vic Mignogna. I guess that's how you say his name. He's one of my favorite con guests, and I kind of discovered him. I knew who he was, but I discovered that he was one of my favorite con guests by going to one of his panels. He did Star Trek Continues, and he's also a voice actor. But I'd love to do a marathon viewing of Star Trek Continues over the weekend with him and some of the cast from that, because that would be so much fun, because that is basically, these are professional actors that are working actors and voice actors and things like that, but Star Trek Continues is basically a labor of love. And now that they've done all their episodes, I would just love to sit there and watch them, go over the things they did, and maybe do some Q&A, but do the live commentary with it. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know, legally what they could do with Paramount gigging being what it is with Star Trek, but I'm like, that would be so much fun. In the dream convention scenario, I would be like, you know what, all the legal stuff is taken care of and it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is kosher.
Yes.
Yep.
No. Shaun.
Well, I have two. One I've mentioned on Traveling the Vortex before, which was the year that Mel and I got to go out to Starfest in Denver. I hadn't heard much about this con, and we went because they had announced Richard Dean Anderson, who we both are in love with, and it's like, yeah, absolutely, let's go. So we drove to Denver, and Starfest is a really interesting convention. It has a feel very much like there were a whole bunch of, and somebody said, you know what, we should probably just put these all under one roof. And so one wing of the hotel was a horror con. And they had horror guests. They had horror movies being shown. It was all the cosplay. If you were dressed, that's kind of where you hung out because those were your people. They had certain rooms that were designated for Star Trek. Obviously, the Richard Dean Anderson, so Stargate was a huge presence. They did that. There was an anime thing going on. They apparently had outgrown that particular facility because there was also a comic book con, but they had moved them across the street into another facility to be able to handle the dealer's room for that. And so that was there. It was a really cool setup. And the hotel itself was this wonderful, had a big atrium, and all of the rooms in the tower had balconies that looked out onto the atrium. And so everybody who was staying at the hotel would decorate their balcony for the weekend. And you would see Klingon flags hanging off of, I mean, it really brought this atmosphere of, wow, these people are into this. This is cool. And so I kind of would like to see something like that, especially for those of us that are, we're in a smaller market here. There's not much that you're going to be able to get in the way of a bigger guest, because they're not going to come to Topeka. They'll go to Kansas City, maybe Wichita, but they're not going to come here. And so we've got a couple of startups that are, kind of trying to push that boundary and do something. And I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, team up. You can draw twice the number of people and share the message and share the cost. And it would benefit everybody, I feel like, because then you're able to put on a slightly bigger event. And as long as as long as you're respectful about it, not stepping on toes, I think it's a good idea. So that's something that any excuse to bring in even ancillary things that maybe you don't feel like, well, I'm not sure this is right for the con, but maybe it is. Maybe a film festival is something that there would be something of value to that. Mm-hmm. So I've always thought that was a cool idea since I saw that. And the other one is kind of go back to the interactive thing. I have no idea logistically how you pull it off, but I would love to see a Quidditch tournament.
Yes.
Like, I know they're playing it on college campuses across the country, and I think if you invited teams and you had the Quidditch World Cup at this convention, and the teams come, and then there's a set of games Friday night, a set of games Saturday night, and then the championships on Sunday where people are actually around. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it would.
Yeah, it would. I mean, like I said, like they do, tabletop gaming tournaments. Why couldn't they do Quidditch?
Right. Or maybe it's not even teams from outside. Maybe it's you host learn to play Quidditch on Friday. and then you break into
championship
teams
on Saturday.
Yeah, you break into teams and you play a couple games, and if you win, it's like, well, now you got to come back because you're on the team. So.
Hopefully their photo ops or something aren't at the same time.
That would be one of those things. I think you could probably do that as an evening event, to kind of get the spectator aspect in it and have some fun that way. So
that would be fun.
It would be
fun. We do it at the library with the Harry Potter themed programming, do Quidditch. So it's like, why not do it at a convention?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Anyone have anything else they want to add? We lost Chris, unfortunately, due to weather. So.
Yes.
I'm sure somebody said it. I'll throw it out there. My dream guest is Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell.
Oh, so. Yes.
Yep.
Oh, man.
I kind of have an idea that kind of went off what Shaun was saying, but, like, each, like, hotel room, like, was a theme, and you can choose, I want the Doctor Who room, or I want the Star Wars, or the MCU. So I think that'd be, like, because I've been to something similar. I went to a bed and breakfast where they had different themes, so I thought that'd be kind of cool to have it.
That would be cool.
Yeah, each hotel floor is a different theme. It's like, I want to stay on the Doctor Who floor or whatever. I guess that would be fun. It those kind of bring kind of a more festival atmosphere to it.
And the kicker is, it wouldn't take. All you have to do is get a willing hotel to play along.
Oh yeah.
And so many of the hotels that you stay at with these cons are barely tolerant. Mm-hmm. And it really comes across that they don't understand it, they don't get it, they know that you brought a ton of money in with you, but really all they care about is that you're going to create a disruption for the wedding that they double booked on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so to get a hotel that would play along with it and go, yeah, you guys got the run of the place, what do you need from us, and we're going to do this, and change out some graphics, or put the stickers on the hotel elevator buttons. Something fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I remember, like, when Galley was, it has blown up a lot since then, but people were just saying, like, well, just book the whole hotel, and they're like, well, we really can't do that, because, but, Yeah, definitely. Dream convention. Let's do that. Themed rooms.
I keep meaning the next time I get out to Galley, I'm going to bring a set of stickers to put on that elevator. What floor are you on? Baker. Yeah. Okay, which one?
People do it on cruises. Yeah, the not the last time, but the first time Chauncey and I went on a Disney cruise, we the group we were cruising with, there was a door decorating contest.
Nice.
All right, yeah, there you go.
So, we did a whole Marvel thing where we made the door to our stateroom look like an oversized front page of a comic book with all the Avengers on it. So, it's you can do as little or as much as you want, but I do like the idea of themes though. It's going full bore,
Mm-hmm.
It's just like cosplay, only you don't have to take it with you.
Yes.
Yes.
You leave it at the room.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about, I forgot my hat. It makes the whole thing. Well, you just go look at the room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just got an idea. Christy, to tie in with your author and audiobooks, I'm thinking have a big Finish panel story.
Yes.
Ooh,
I thought of that. A live
yes.
Big Finish recording.
That would be so cool. Like, yeah, and if they had it available for sale, like for charity or something, or
exactly.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about real scientists? I've seen a couple of them show up at a couple of different cons, and I've always been. I'm right on the cusp of I want to go to your panel, but inevitably because you're a real person.
They had Buzz Aldrin here a few years ago, and that was one of the big headliners. Like, I can't remember who the celebrity guests were, but it was like celebrity guests, and Buzz Aldrin was like right there on the same level with them.
Yeah.
And he was there at the opening ceremonies, and they had a big press conference in the morning of the first day, and yeah, they had all these kids. They brought him up on stage to ask him questions, and he had this whole real cool presentation. It was like, when you have like school assemblies and they bring in someone from the planetarium or the museum or something. It's basically that kind of presentation, but for a big ballroom at a convention full of people. And it was very well received, and I was like, guys, you need to do that more often.
Yeah. Starbase Indy does that. They'll bring in astronauts, and they'll bring in actual scientists, and I know last year they did like they had a scientist that taught people how to extract DNA from like a strawberry.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, as a hands-on activity. So it's like, yeah, that would be.
That kind of goes into your robots idea, Brittany.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be for it because look at some of the people get inspired by shows, and then they go into those fields. So yeah, I'd say bring in the scientists. Maybe bring in some of the CGI creators,
Yes.
And that too.
Or practical effects work where you've got a model builder.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know I can't remember what it's called exactly, but it's the department at the University of Utah that a lot of it's kind of under their graphic design and computer science department. Somehow they kind of blend it together. It's like electronic entertainment something. They always have a table, and it's like, well, let them do a big presentation or have them do a panel. And like, because there's so many. My sister actually graduated from that with that major, and now I'm like feeling stupid because I can't remember what it's exactly called. But animators who come from that program that are working for Pixar and DreamWorks and some of those other guys out in Hollywood. So it's like, that's going back to kind of the local thing. It's like, yeah, do some of that.
Well, there's tie it into the artist alley and then have some hands-on stuff. So if you have younger kids, if they're getting bored wandering around, they can have some hands-on fun stuff to do too. And
they'll be like, this is how all your favorite animated CGI movies are made, and it's actually made by real people. come check this out, and you could do it too someday if you wanted to.
That's something I feel kind of bad about. Planet Comic-Con the last couple of years has done a phenomenal job of setting up what they call the Planet Entertainment Zone, or PEZ. And it's a whole section that's really devoted to just kid stuff. And it's very hands-on. It's interactive. It's, I've seen them do things like they've got a lightsaber training, or they'll make things. They'll put a word out to all of the volunteers: save your milk cartons for the next 6 months. And so people bring in trash bags full of milk cartons, and then they're used to make things at the, kind of arts and crafts. But it's all geek sci-fi, con-related things. And I feel bad because the positions that Mel and I are in as superheroes for back-of-house ballrooms, we very rarely get to leave the ballroom. So Mel's backstage, I'm front of house, and we deal with all the panel, the big panels that are there. And generally, they let us out for about an hour. We run through the con floor, or we let them know, hey, we've got
release the Kraken.
So I'm going to leave here at 3:50 and run across the floor and be all sweaty and nasty in my picture, and then come back. And they're like, yeah, okay. So we just haven't got to experience any of the kid stuff. But I think it's great that there new avenues are opening up to find ways of kind of, well, first of all, hook them early, and secondly, to kind of give them something to do that's not shopping.
Yep.
On that note, ladies, I have a young one who's waited up for me a little. She's waited up for Papa a little too long for bedtime.
Okay. Well,
I have to go say good night.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's important. So.
Yep. It is. As always, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on here.
I'm sorry that I was late.
That's okay. I was
lives where.
Yeah, it's okay. I was a little bit late too. Had a little one I had to deal with, but all is well. Thank you for coming, Shaun.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks again.
Yep.
Thank you.
Love you all.
Yep.
Guests are fun, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Mm-hmm. So, thanks to all of our guests that showed up for this week's show. So this was fun. I really like this. This was a lot of fun. So, and I'm sure we could probably keep going, but I think we'll save our ideas for maybe we'll do a part 2 down the line.
Yeah, we could totally go fill it up.
We could fill up 365 days of convention madness. So.
Oh my goodness.
Easily.
Someday. Someday, guys.
We'll definitely make sure to put the links to all of our guests' information in the show notes. So, if any of our listeners are like, wait, what did he say that website is? Don't worry. It'll be in the show notes on the website. So you can go and look up all their fun stuff. Of course, Traveling the Vortex always has a permanent link on our website. So,
yep, we're always affiliated, and we love them for it.
Yes. So, but this has been fun. So,
yeah, and as always, you can find our website, the5ishfangirls.com, and you can send us feedback if you have con ideas and pie in the sky dreams that you would hope to have. If you were ever running your convention and everything was in line for you, send us feedback at 5ishfangirls@gmail.com, and also leave comments on social media. Mm-hmm. And all of our other links are on our website. So check us out, and we love you guys for listening and supporting us as always.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And don't forget to check out links to our Patreon and our Amazon affiliate link and our merch. On my merch, so you can always,
we still have merch.
Yes, so any financial support is greatly appreciated. So, and then we will be back next week, probably back to our usual format. Maybe we'll see. We'll see what kind of ideas Rachel comes up with between now and next week. We shall see. So. But I guess with that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany in Bethlehem saying goodnight.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. On behalf of all our guests, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you all later. Bye! Listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. You can find more episodes and information at the5ishfangirls.com. Any and all books, movies, games, and other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied. If you'd like to support the show, the best and easiest way is to leave us a rating and review on iTunes. More ratings and reviews will make it easier for others to find the show. If you wish to support us monetarily, you can do so at Patreon at patreon.com/5ishfangirlspodcast. All money goes towards fees and equipment to help keep the show going. For official Five-ish Fangirls merchandise, visit mymerch.us. We love hearing from our listeners and encourage feedback. You can email us at fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/5ishfangirls. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you all on the next episode.